Good afternoon. Welcome to Maxwell for America. Do you ever get the feeling you're playing a game you just can't win? That no matter how hard you work, you're only falling further behind. This isn't just in your head, it's a deep seated feeling in America today that the whole game is rigged. For farmers, teachers, veterans, even the clergy, the very pillars of our community. It feels like the country they built has turned its back on them. You're not imagining it, and the story of why begins not with you, but with a promise that was broken nearly a century ago. The year was 1929. The bottom fell out, not just from the stock market, but from the soul of the nation. It was the birth of the forgotten man, a term Franklin D. Roosevelt himself used. But what if the system built in the aftermath weren't designed to remember him? What if they were designed to remember him forgotten? For American farmers, the Great Depression didn't start in 29. Excuse me, they've been living it for years. During World War One, they were heroes, urged by the government to take on massive debt to feed the world. But when the war ended, so did the guaranteed prices. The market collapsed. Suddenly, those same farmers were left with staggering surpluses and crushing debt. A bushel of wheat that sold for nearly $3 in 20 plummeted to around 38 cents by 32. That's a drop of nearly 90%. They were producing more than ever and earning less than ever. Then the banks came. In places like Mississippi, foreclosure auctions became a daily tragedy. In a single notorious day, auctions were held for an area covering nearly a quarter of the state's farmland. The government's response? The Agricultural Adjustment Administration, or AAA. It paid farmers to produce less. In a nation where the people were starving, this meant plowing under crops, slaughtering millions of young animals. While income rose for some, the money often went to large landowners, not the tenant farmers or sharecroppers. They were pushed off the land, replaced by the very machinery that subsidizes help buy. It was the first great rejection, a system that paid corporations to destroy food while families starved, pushing the small family farmer toward extinction. What a shame. At the same time, another pillar of America was crumbling, the classroom. When the economy collapsed, so did school funding. As people lost their jobs, they couldn't pay the property taxes that kept the lights on. Across the country, schools went into survival mode. They called it retrenchment. They slashed hours, cut music or art, and in many rural areas, just shut their doors. In Alabama, most children had no school to go to for long stretches of 1932 to 33. Teachers, once respected professionals, had their salaries cut by 40 or 50%. They were often paid in script that was worthless if they were paid at all. They were asked to teach more kids in bigger classes with fewer resources. Sounds like today. All while trying to comfort hungry children who had seen their families lose everything. The message was clear. When times get tough, education is expendable. That cycle of neglect has never stopped. Today, the teachers are still fighting for their fair pay, dealing with overcrowded classrooms, and spending their own money on supplies. This is the second great rejection, the systemic devaluing of knowledge and the people who dedicate their lives to it. We make a sacred promise to those who fight our wars that a grateful nation will care for when they return. That promise was formalized in 1930 with the creation of the Veterans Administration, or VA. But almost from the start, it's been a story of bureaucracy and betrayal. Just a few years after its founding, the head of the VA's predecessor agency was convicted of taking bribes and looting millions from veterans programs. After World War II, millions of vets came home to an overwhelmed system that buried them in red tape. It became a pattern. For Vietnam veterans, the VA was tragically slow to even recognize post-traumatic stress disorder, or what we now know as PTSD, leaving a generation to fight the invisible wounds alone. Most recently, scandals exposed horrific wait times for care, with some veterans dying while waiting for an appointment. Veteran homelessness remains a persistent crisis. See, we have them fight our wars, then we throw them away as trash. And that is where I want to draw the line, because they're not. They're heroes that need diamonds thrown at their feet. While overall numbers have fallen over the past decade, progress has slowed, and for hundreds of thousands of veterans, the transition to back to civilian life is a battle they're forced to fight without support. This is the third great rejection, a system designed to serve our heroes that instead leaves them fighting all over again, this time all alone. The final pillar in our moral compass is the clergy, the pastors. Churches once were the center of community life, providing not just for spiritual guidance, but a social safety net. But as the government's role in social welfare grew, the public role of the church began to shrink. At the same time, a gap between the modern theology taught in seminaries and the traditional belief of pastors in small town churches. This left many local pastors and their congregation feeling disconnected and isolated from the very institutions that were meant to support them. Today, that feeling has only grown worse. Pastors report deep loneliness, facing immense pressure to lead communities fractured by politics and culture. They struggle to keep younger generations engaged, feeling like they're leading institutions that have been pushed to the margins of American life. This is the fourth rejection, the gradual silencing of the moral and spiritual voices that once gave our nation guidance and greatness. For nearly 100 years, these four pillars, the farmer, the teacher, the veteran, the clergy, have been systematically weakened. We have been told their struggles are isolated incidents. They're not. They're all connected places of a single story, a nation that has slowly forgotten the very people who form its foundation. One historian and researcher, a man named Maxwell, has spent his life tracing this story. He connected the dots from the farm foreclosure of the 20s to the underfunded classrooms of today. He saw this wasn't a series of accidents, but the result of a system that consistently favors centralized power and corporate interests over its people. He argues that people need a vision to believe in again and not just return to a past that wasn't working for most of us anyway. Maxwell understands that knowing its history isn't enough. The first step to reclaiming our future is to understand exactly how we lost our past. This is why Maxwell is now launching a movement for people America has rejected since 29, a movement to ensure farmers can profit from their work, not just survive on subsidies, a movement to see that teachers get their raises, resources, and respect they've earned, a movement to guarantee that every single version veteran has a home, and a movement to protect the right of our clergy to lead with moral clarity. Today, I'd like to tell you that Maxwell person is me. I'm Stephen C. Maxwell. Hello there. I want you to know that Maxwell for America is standing behind the farmers, the teachers, the veterans, and the clergy. Too many years we have forgotten these precious people. Those who were back there in 1929, I am a great-grandchild of a farmer. I am a grandson of a veteran. I am a child of a factory worker that would have been forgotten today. I am a child of a CNA nurse who took her time with every patient and did the best that she could. And I myself am a disabled veteran, former factory worker, and former fast food. And I can tell you that rejection is big in those areas. Today, I'd like to tell you that I'm running for president of the United States to be the 48th president. I want to see the farmer, the teacher, the veteran, and the clergy in 2029 be top tier again. I want to make sure that farmers are getting their profits, Teachers are getting their raises, stipends, and bonuses. I want to make sure the clergy are being protected, even if it means calling out the U.S. Marines or the State National Guard for that area. Also, I'd like you to know that the U.S. veterans are important to this country. We don't send them to war and expect them to return to be treated like trash. We expect them to be treated as the heroes they are, given the utmost respect, courteousness, and friendliness, both to them, their dependents, wife, husband, children, or orphans, widow or widower. We're here to bear their load, both in sickness and in health, in the U.S. Veterans Affairs. And we are going to start doing this January 20th, 2029. And I appreciate your vote for me. I will be the Republican candidate to be president of the United States. We're going to move America forward and make it bigger, better, and faster. I'm for the people and not the party. And I wish you a very big God bless you and God bless the United States of America. I appreciate your vote. November the 7th, 2028. Stephen C. Maxwell in the Republican Party for President of the United States. For the people, not the party. God bless. Bye-bye.